The flames lit up the night sky like a second sunrise. Smoke clawed its way into the heavens, while the crackling sound of burning wood echoed across the quiet fields. Emily stood barefoot in the dirt, her trembling hands clutching the hem of her dress. Her childhood home, the farmhouse her parents had built with their own hands, was being devoured by fire. She wanted to scream, but her voice had been stolen by shock. This wasn't an accident. She knew it. For weeks, a group of local men had been tormenting her. They mocked her accent, her skin, the way she dressed, and even the simplicity of her life. She ignored the comments at first, but it didn't stop. The whispers turned into shoves at the market, then into threats scrawled on her barn walls. And now, this, her safe haven reduced to embers because some men thought she didn't belong. Her chest tightened, her knees buckled, but she refused to collapse. She wasn't completely alone. Miles away, her husband was serving with Delta Force. He had promised her he'd always protect her, even from afar. Still, she didn't want to worry him. He had enough battles on his shoulders. But as she stared at her burning home, she realized this was war too. A different kind of war. When word reached Jack, her husband, he was thousands of miles away on a classified mission. The moment he heard, he didn't hesitate. He pushed every string he could, cut through every barrier, and got himself home. It wasn't the homecoming he wanted. He expected to embrace his wife under the porch light of their farm, not find her standing before ashes and ruins. Jack wrapped his arms around her trembling frame, holding her as if she were the only thing keeping him grounded. His eyes scanned the destruction, and his jaw tightened. He had seen villages burned in war zones, but never thought he'd see it here, in his own country, against his own wife. The challenges that followed weren't just about rebuilding a house. The bullies had grown bold, thinking Emily was weak, thinking Jack's absence made her an easy target. Rumors spread in town that she should go back where she came from. Shopkeepers gave her cold stares, and the men who had burned her home laughed openly when they saw her walking through town, as though justice would never touch them. Emily struggled. Nights were filled with nightmares of fire. Days were heavy with silence. Jack knew combat. He knew how to fight enemies in the shadows of war. But here, the enemy was prejudice, cowardice, and small-town hate. It was an enemy he couldn't take down with bullets or grenades. He had to fight it differently. First, Jack rebuilt. With his own hands, he started framing a new farmhouse on the same ground that had been scorched. Neighbors who once turned a blind eye began to notice. Some of them, shamed by their silence, picked up hammers and joined him. Emily, though fearful, found strength standing beside him, painting walls and planting new crops. The bullies didn't stop. One night, they drove by shouting slurs, throwing bottles, trying to scare them into leaving. But instead of hiding, Jack walked straight into the road, standing tall in the headlights. The car screeched to a stop, and for the first time, those men saw in his eyes what it meant to face a Delta Force operator. There was no violence, just silence, heavy and unshakable. They drove off, and one by one their arrogance crumbled. Justice came, not through revenge, but through exposure. Jack gathered evidence, worked with authorities, and made sure the truth of what happened couldn't be buried. The men who burned Emily's home were arrested and charged. The same townspeople who once whispered now offered apologies, meals, and hands of support. But the true victory wasn't in the arrests, or even the rebuilt house. It was in Emily's strength. She had faced hate head on without breaking. She learned that love, steadfast, patient, and fierce, was stronger than fire. And Jack, hardened by wars overseas, found a new kind of battle worth fighting, standing by his wife against injustice at home. When the new farmhouse was finished, Emily stood on the porch at sunset, holding Jack's hand. She looked at the fields stretching before her, the land her parents had once nurtured, and the home that now stood taller than before. The scars of fire would never fully fade, but they didn't define her. Her voice, once silenced by fear, now carried with steady power. She whispered to Jack, "They thought they could break us, but we're still here." Jack kissed her forehead and answered, "As long as we stand together, they never will." And in that moment, surrounded by golden fields and a rebuilt home, Emily knew something the Bullies never would. Love and resilience can't be burned down.